What's up, guys? In today's video, I want to share with you 10 of my top favorite muscle building exercises of all time. Now, of course, this is by no means an exhaustive list. These are just some of my favorites, so without wasting any more of your time, let's get right into it. Starting off our list with everyone's favorite muscle group, the biceps, we have the axle curl. The axle curl is primarily going to build your biceps and your forearms, and in my opinion, it is superior to a barbell curl in every single way possible. The increased diameter of the axle bar forces your forearms to work that much harder just so you can hold on to the thing without taking away any of the training effect you're going to get for your biceps. I also feel like this increased diameter takes some of the pressure off your elbows. It's as if that load is more evenly distributed throughout your entire arm. This means you can go heavier and keep your joints feeling healthy. While you may initially see a slight drop in the amount of weight you can use when switching from a barbell to an axle bar, the trade-off is worth it. In no time, you'll be back to repping out the same weight you were using before, and your arms are going to be that much bigger because of it. Next up on our list, we have the deficit weighted push-up. The deficit weighted push-up is primarily going to build your chest, triceps, and shoulders. You're also going to get some ab work in there too. This is going to be the primary horizontal pressing motion on this list. While the bench press is a great movement, and if this was a list of my top 30 exercises, I probably would have added it, I've always felt like the deficit weighted push-up is superior. This is a true more out of less weight movement. The added range of motion will allow for a greater stretch on your pecs, which will lead to more muscle, and there's something special about moving your own body weight through space that seems to allow for more volume. It's been my experience that I can get away with doing more total work on the deficit weighted push-up than I can on the bench press. And when it comes to building muscle, the more total quality tonnage you can accumulate while still maintaining proper recovery on a weekly and monthly basis, the better. Alright, now moving on to everyone's secret favorite muscle group, the glutes, we have the reverse lunge with rear leg assistance. The reverse lunge will primarily build your glutes, quads, and hamstrings, and you will also get a secondary training effect on your calves, as well as all the muscles that are involved with maintaining proper high bar or low bar positioning. So your upper back, your traps, your shoulders, your abs, and your low back, that's all going to be working isometrically as well. When we're talking glutes, I don't think it gets much better than the reverse lunge with rear leg assistance. Allowing your back leg to help out really lets you overload this movement. We all know we're a lot stronger on the eccentric portion of a lift, so you can load that bar up pretty heavy, go slow and controlled on the way down, placing most of the emphasis on your front leg. Then when you're at the bottom, use that extra assistance from your back leg, go back up to the start, and go again. This eccentric overload is going to build up the glutes in a major way, and it's almost as if you're actually able to get a weighted stretch on the glutes, which is hard to come by. And I will give you guys a warning here. The first time I did this one, I was sore for a week. So don't go too crazy on the volume right away. Next up on our list, it's time to work on that V taper. We have the humble pull-up. Depending on the form you use, pull-ups will primarily build your lats, upper back, traps, and forearms. If you spend enough time working on pull-ups, it won't matter if you're 10% body fat or 30%. Your lats are going to be so wide that you'll have that V taper regardless. Now, when it comes to which pull-up variation you should use, the answer is yes. Do all of them. You want to try to accumulate as much volume as you can, and the only way you're going to get there is by rotating through all the variations. You don't even necessarily need to get much stronger on your pull-ups to see results. Some of the craziest growth I ever saw in my lats came from spending 6 months just accumulating as much junk volume on pull-ups as I could. So, pull-ups. I don't know what else I can say here. Just try to do as many of them as you can. Next up on our list, we have a low back and leg building machine. We have the low bar pin squat to parallel. The low bar pin squat to parallel is going to build up pretty much your entire posterior chain. Your spinal erectors, your upper back, your lats, your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings. All of that's going to grow like crazy from this one movement. Now, I realized when choosing a movement for the posterior chain, I had a lot of options. I easily could have said the RDL or the good morning among many other things, but there's something special about the low bar pin squat to parallel. This exercise may take the top spot on our list in terms of the total number of muscles being worked at once. Starting in that low bar position will force you to maintain a more horizontal torso angle, which will lead to a much greater contribution from the hamstrings and the low back. I know this is technically a squat, But in my opinion, this movement is as much a back exercise as it is a leg one. When you're in that bottom position, if you want to try to squat back up, your entire backside has no choice but to maximally contract. Everything from your neck down to your hips needs to work together as one solid mass to stabilize that weight. At the same time, your glutes, hamstrings, and quads are all going to have to push with everything they have to bring you back to the top of that movement. So, the low bar pin squat to parallel, if you've never done this one before, I definitely recommend giving it a try. It's going to help build up all those muscles that are often overlooked and neglected in many training programs. The lower and upper back, the glutes, and the hamstrings, all of that's going to contribute to giving you a more well-rounded and developed physique. Moving on to the one-arm landmine row, this one's going to help build up the thickness of your upper back. The one-arm landmine row is primarily going to build up your upper back and lats, but you'll also get a good training effect on your traps, low back, obliques, and abs. There are at least a dozen other rowing movements I easily could have put on this list, but I chose the one-arm landmine row for a few specific reasons. The unique setup allows for maximum stretch overload without stressing the low back like a heavy two-armed row would. It may take you a bit to find your groove with this movement, and it will require some added oblique strength to eventually load it up heavy. But once you connect with the exercise, you'll see why it's so effective. The placement of the bar in relation to your body gives this movement the perfect strength curve. Because of the landmine setup, the weight actually feels heaviest at the bottom, which allows for a great stretch in the upper and mid back muscles, and lightest at the top, which lets you focus on contracting the back while maintaining a more horizontal torso angle. Because this is a unilateral movement, it also lets you get more out of less weight when compared to a heavy two-armed row. So when it comes to rowing, more is usually better, and I would recommend doing as many rowing variations as you can. But if you haven't done this one before, you might want to give it a try. Next, let's finish off that V-taper with my favorite overhead pressing movement, the Axle Z-press. The Axle Z-press will primarily build your shoulders, triceps, and upper chest, but you will also get an added secondary training effect for your upper and lower back, your traps, your abs, and your hip flexors. Any overhead pressing movement will build your shoulders, but I chose the Axle Z-press for one specific reason. I've been able to continually improve for a long time now without ever feeling even the slightest hint of shoulder discomfort. When done correctly, overhead pressing can be very therapeutic on your shoulders, but I often end up with shoulder impingement if I push too hard with a standard barbell overhead press. For some reason, I find it much easier to cheat with this movement, which always leads to shoulder discomfort, for me at least. The Axle Z-press, on the other hand, forces you to maintain perfect form on every set, or you just won't complete the rep. And similar to the axle curl from before, the increased diameter of the axle bar seems to allow for a more even weight distribution on your joints, which again lets you get away with more volume, which will lead to more muscle. Moving on to the next spot on our list, this one's going to be a 2-for-1. We have the banded neck curl and extension. The neck is arguably one of the most important areas on your body to develop. A couple months of direct work will literally transform your physique from average to strong and powerful. I'm not endorsed by the company, but I find the neck flex to be the ultimate way to build your neck. The band tension is more than enough to add inches to your neck measurement, and the strength curve feels perfect. More than anything though, I would just try to do something for your neck at least twice a week at the bare minimum. I like using bands, but plate curls or extensions will get the job done too. Whatever you decide to do, building up your neck will go a long way towards improving your physique, so don't skip it. Next up, we have the weighted crunch. I prefer using a band for this one, but a machine can work too if that's what you want to do. Direct ab work is essential if you want a six-pack, and the weighted crunch is the best thing I've ever done for that purpose. I spent years repping away set after set on easy bodyweight movements and barely had abs, even at a low body fat percentage. Once I introduced weighted ab work, I finally developed that thickness I was after. Don't forget, the abs are a muscle, just like any other. You can't expect to build massive arms without isolated work, and the same holds true for the abs. You will see some ab growth from heavy compound movements, but heavy isolated work will finish the job. I still believe traps are the new abs, but you'd be surprised just how much a well-developed six-pack will add to your overall appearance. So if you haven't been isolating, Give it a few months of isolated work, and I think you'll be very surprised by the results. And finally, last on our list, and my personal favorite muscle building exercise of all time, we have the bear hug carry. The most accessible option for most guys will be a sandbag, but you can carry anything, heavy stones, barrels, kegs, whatever. The bear hug carry will add slabs of muscle to your upper back, your traps, your lats, your spinal erectors, all the way from your waist up to your neck, your biceps, your forearms, and your abs. You'll also see some growth to your glutes, hamstrings, quads, and calves, and chest. While a carry may not seem like the best way to build your legs due to a lack of knee bend or hinging, the most sore my legs have ever been in my life was from going about a half mile with a heavy stone. I felt like I was in middle school again. I couldn't sleep because it felt like I had painful growing pains in my legs. From an outside perspective, a bear hug carry may seem like an isometric movement, but in reality, the weight shifts with every step, which forces all those muscles I listed before to resist that movement over and over. A 30-second carry may actually contain within it hundreds of micro adjustments, and this leads to major growth. And the isolated muscle growth you get from this movement aside, it's been my experience that loading the body with heavy weight through weighted carries leads to an overall systemic increase in muscle gain. Something about loading the body up heavy just makes you grow faster. I made an entire video on this topic if you're interested. And that's all there is to it, guys. While I do recommend rotating movements pretty frequently, including the movements on this list will lead to a ton of new muscle gain. So I hope you liked the video, and until next time, thanks for watching.